I live in a high-tech world, and all I have to do is hand over the iPad to my 2-year-old to realize that kids rule this high-tech world. The technology isn't going anywhere, but my next guest says the way parents teach has to keep up with that technology. Studio 5 contributor Dr. Julie Hanks has identified 5 real-life skills for high-tech kids. And I was saying earlier, it's kind of refreshing to hear someone say, this is the world we live in, deal with it, let's make a plan, instead of it being kind of this, it's so bad.
Right.
Yes.
No, change is always scary for people where it's new. You know, I read something the other day where any technology that's invented after you're 30 is suspect and like, oh, you know, don't do that. And before you're 30, it's like, well, that's just normal, right? So, and that happens in every generation. So I think it's really important for parents to not fear technology or like, oh my gosh, you know, kids these days. That's not helpful. Technology is not good or bad. It's how we use it. It can improve our lives and relationships, or it can distance us. And so there are some really important skills that have to do with face-to-face interaction and being actually in reality instead of a virtual world that kids really need to know.
And you've pulled out some of those life skills for us today. Yeah. And the first one is to be alone.
Yeah, so and in the therapy world, we call it self-soothing, but being able to identify what you're feeling and then to help yourself feel better. Okay. So toddlers, think about like a binky or a bottle. That's called a transitional object. Well, now we all use our phones or iPads like to distract instead of just actually feel what we're feeling. And then how do we make ourselves feel better? So that's through self-talk, through mindfulness or breathing, through laying down and, you know, meditating. So I think kids are losing that ability to soothe their own painful emotions, and kind of it's so easy to distract, and we do it too as adults. I mean, I find myself
through Instagram before I go to bed to kind of that's not doing it. I've got to actually kind of be alone, put my phone aside for a second.
And especially with painful emotions, we want to feel better, but this is about getting better at feeling.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and important for our kids to know, right? I mean,
right, it's an important skill. What am I feeling, and how can I make myself feel better without going to technology to numb or avoid?
The next skill you say is ask for comfort.
Yes, so this kind of goes along with that, with recognizing how you're feeling and then being able to use your relationships, your face-to-face relationships in a healthy way to get comfort, right? So it's less scary for me to, if I'm having a bad day, to post something on Facebook than actually go to a friend and be like, you know what, I need a hug, like I am just having a bad day, right? So, and the posting on social media, that's not an invalid way to get comfort. Like that works, but as human beings, we need the face-to-face. Right, and we need the actual touch too. And we need the voice and the eye contact. And so I think the technological way can support the other, but it can't replace it.
So you've got to have both.
Yeah.
Another thing is to make eye contact, which falls kind of into that same category.
Yeah, so I noticed this when I'm out to eat, really, because you'll see like there are people eating and they'll be on their phones, right? They'll be talking and like, oh, you know, your phone will buzz and so just being able to maintain eye contact during a conversation is becoming kind of a lost skill.
It is kind of a skill. I think it sometimes is awkward to hold that eye contact or to be able to keep eye contact with someone. I find myself, my eyes wandering or...
Yeah, and it's not like you're going to just be, you know, but to not... So just because your phone vibrates does not mean you need to look at it when you're actually with a person. I can't remember who said this quote, but it's be where your feet are.
Okay.
So, right, like be where you, like we're here right now, and if I'm over here on my, you know, iPad, it sends a message that you're not as valuable as whatever's going on in my virtual world.
Yeah, it does take away from. Okay, greet someone new. What does that mean?
I noticed the other day that my 8-year-old, when she greeted someone new, it's like she didn't look up and her hand was kind of like this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to teach her. And so I think that's a really important skill, to be able, for kids to be able to say, put their hand out and say, oh, it's nice to meet you. Courtney, and look them in the eye and, you know, stand up and speak up and shake hands. I think that's still an important skill that we need. And so like, hey, what's up, you know? That doesn't cut it, especially with adults who didn't grow up with technology in every aspect of their life. You need to interact with adults who still expect that kind of introduction and response.
Yes, yes. And it's respectful too, I think.
Yeah. Well, we think it is. I mean, it may be different in, you know, 25 years, but for now, we still need to know that. Yes.
The last life skill is maintain mealtime conversation.
Okay, this is so important. With fast food and, you know, overscheduling, a lot of people eat in the car. We're kind of losing that art of using food to gather and connect. So I think that's important. We have Sunday dinner where the older kids come, and it's a no phone zone. Because I want my kids to be able to, even my adult kids, who sometimes are the worst, right? to be able to ask questions. Oh, well, tell me more about that. Instead of just kind of just sitting there and then, you know, posting things. And it's important to be able to do that. And then as kids grow up and they're dating or they're going out with friends, to be able to interact face-to-face while eating and carrying on a conversation. I think we just can't lose that.
Yeah, good things to practice with our kids and as adults too.
Yeah, I know. It's hard.
People can find more at drjuliehanks.com?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks as always. Well,